What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Canadian Beef Bodybuilding. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Nate Spear, who is a new IFBB pro, relatively new, speaking. And you did your pro debut at Boston. Thanks for coming on the show, man. And we also got Big Mac as well. What's up, Big Mac?
Call me Big Mo, guys. I don't like Big Mac.
Okay, fine.
Please and thank you.
Big Mo. Okay. You don't want them you don't want them to stick, eh?
Yeah, I mean, Big Mac is like, I think like Antoine came up with that like the last time I was at career. He just started calling me that. Like, it's been Big Mo since I'm 13, but we'll roll with Big Mac. That's what
Big Mac sauce, you know? All right, no. Okay, Big Mo.
Yeah, we got to transition it back.
So Nate, what's going on, man? How was your pro debut? It was, you looked fucking crazy. You're conditioned as hell.
Look great.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was a little different because it wasn't directly, but I just got my card at Nationals. For those that don't know, in December in America, the NPC Nationals down in Florida. So it was like a transition. There wasn't much time to really get a whole lot better. We did bring I think an improved look because like for some of the newer people that are listening, once you're in shape, I feel like it's a little easier to reel in that fullness. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get out of that hole. So I think a lot of people don't really understand like the whole bodybuilding game, but to get in, super good condition for that first show, you sort of get in a hole. So you tend to, if you're really conditioned, you'll probably end up a little on the flat side. You know what I'm saying? Just from digging out that conditioning. So for Boston, we had 12-week stretch from Nationals, and it was really nice because we were able to let up on the cardio. Before Nationals, we were, I think, at an hour in the morning, 40 minutes fasted post-workout. So an hour and 40 total. And then for Nationals, we didn't get any higher than 30 minutes. So I think that made a huge difference, especially a guy that has like, I'd always say my knock was my legs, and they came really nice and full this show, I feel like. So I think that was a big help. I mean, some guys talk about it, doing cardio to get in shape. Sometimes you eat up the legs a little bit, so we were able to bring those back in. And also we were able to bring food back too, because once you're in really good shape, you can control that and, stay in shape, I guess, is a lot easier than getting into shape.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that as well. Like when I went for my regional show, I had 8 weeks to Nationals, and I found like getting in shape and then staying in shape, like exact same thing, like more food, let off the cardio. It ended up for me like getting in better shape, like brought way better when I did Nationals, and like just blasting full as well. Like it just, so I know for me, like that changed the way I'm going to approach like every prep moving forward. Like definitely try to, like we all say like, oh, we're going to get in shape early for the show. But like after one experience doing that, like I'm definitely going to be trying to be ready, like, at least 3-4 weeks out, and then try to do that process, like let off the cardio, increase the food at least for a couple weeks, going into the show. So like, would you say the same for yourself after experiencing that? Like would that prep kind of change the way you're going to approach shows in the future? Or?
Oh, definitely. I think even just this last year for Nationals, I got a lot better just how I did my cardio. So before I was always a stairs kind of guy because it was hardcore, sort of that old
I've
belief.
done that too.
Yeah. So this year I did a lot of, just light treadmill, incline. I mean, I got up to an hour and 40 minutes, but I got in shape. But I feel like even for Nationals, my legs were better than previous years because of that, not living on the Stairmaster per se, especially for a guy who has weaker lower body. I do think that's true. It does tend to, bring your legs down a little bit. But I think what you're saying as far as, bringing in, so a lot of people don't realize like you can be like peeled to the bone, 4% body fat, but if your fullness is not optimal, your conditioning is not going to shine through, right? So, I mean, you guys know that, but some guys that might not be listening might not know that. But so now you even look more conditioned because your fullness and you're fresher, you know what I mean? You're not quite as, taught like all the way till the end, pushing, so that's definitely something I would love to do. And I think it's a great idea if you can do it. And so, I mean, for me, it's always weird because I don't know how you guys are, but people don't realize because they always see me in really good shape. So they just think maybe it's easy, but my glutes are such a fucking bitch to get in. So like, I'll be at like 3 weeks, 4 weeks out, everything is in, hard, grainy, but I have to do the extra mile, to get those glutes in. So sometimes people see like, oh man, that guy should get shredded. He gets his glutes in, but it's like, yeah, but I had to kill myself to get those things in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Are you like that, Mo?
With glutes?
Yeah.
No, dude, my glutes are so dominant. They come in like 7 weeks out.
See, that's like me. My glutes will be in before my glutes will be in before my lower back, and I'll still have a fat face, like it's.
Well, that's a mistake I made in like my qualifying shows before nationals. Like for one of them, especially, I was just going off my glutes. Like me and my coach, first time I prepped with this coach, Ron Pertlow, you know him, right? Yeah. So first time we worked together, and we went off my glutes. Like thought I was in shape, and then kind of realized after like my lower back was still like holding like I want to say it's watery, but it was probably holding fat.
Yeah.
And things like that. So then like, after that, we just had to get that experience. We're like, okay, like we know not to go off the glutes. Like once my lower back is in, then I'm in good shape, like to compete. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great learning lesson for a lot of people because you're the rare occasion. That's why, because most of us, you know what I mean? Like it might be easier for me because I know if my glutes are in, I'm 100% dialed in, where some guys, I think like Akeem and maybe Cedric too was like that, rest in peace. But like they would have their glutes in, but their lower back or top back or even their midsection was still holding some. So as a coach and someone that's been around the game, it's a good thing to pick up on that kind of stuff. Like just because your glutes are in, doesn't necessarily, you get tricked into thinking like you're in shape, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So are you in like off season mode right now, or are you just like cruising? Like what's up with your current situation?
Yeah, so we just started off season maybe like a week or two ago. Okay. So we came out of Boston maybe 9 or 10 weeks ago, and then just sort of did like a little clean out phase. And I think it's really important, especially the longer I've been doing this. I was just sort of eating sporadically, not trying to track stuff, trying to live life a little bit. Like I went down to Florida to see my dad, like little things like that, where, when you're like, some people won't get this, but I know you guys will. But even when you're in off season, you're so locked in that you don't even want to go anywhere because now you have to worry about your meals. Your appetite is so sensitive that it's so hard to eat on the road, for me at least. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like if I'm in my home, I can cook everything fresh, I don't know. For some reason, it's a little bit easier to like eat when you're in your habitat. So little things like that.
100% like that. I just traveled with my girlfriend's graduation. And like I was like, after 3 days, I'm like kind of like getting agitated, just being out of my space,
Right.
Not only that, but even if you just go somewhere for one night, you got to bring like 10 bags.
Dude, Robin, I just watched your YouTube video. And seeing like all the bags when you're walking through the hotel. This man, I'm not kidding you, he had like 12 bags strapped to him for one day.
We only went for one night.
That's great.
Yeah, brought his whole life with him. But yeah, I'm about to do the exact same thing you just described because I'm just coming out of a 20-week off-season phase.
Yeah,
that I took pretty serious. So now I'm just like letting my weight come down like 10 pounds. Me and my girlfriend are going to like an all-inclusive resort in the Caribbean for a week, and like that was my only thing. I'm like, okay, if we're going on vacation, to make this affordable, like an all-inclusive is ideal because it's just like 3 or 4 buffets a day. So I'm like, as long as I can not lose weight, I'm good to go,
Yeah.
It's just like a breath of air, like you're coming up for air. You're like, okay, now I'm back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like something you need to do.
Yeah, it's such an essential part of the process. So like people from the outside might think you're slacking off or we might even tell ourselves that, but like in the long run, like coming up with that breath of air, giving yourself that mental break, even though you might have to force it, is going to allow you to maybe push for 9 or 10 months and do what you need to do to be your best. Right. But maybe if you didn't take that little break, you get burned out after 6 months, you're not enjoying the process and it doesn't yield as good of a look if that's like the goal. Right.
Well, that's something that comes with like us doing this for 10 or 15 years, because I guarantee you like 5 or 7 years ago, would we have thought this way? You know what I mean? It's maturity though. It's good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think some people, the more you get in this, the more you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Like guys that came before us, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the more competitive you get as well, like you realize that like every day truly adds up. Like, and because like you start, we do these podcasts and we hear other guys talk about what these like other guys are doing. And like, you hear about guys like Roman Fritz and like, for example, and you're just like you have a cheat meal and then you feel like an asshole after that because he hadn't had one for like 2 years or something probably. Like, you know what I mean? So it can be tough sometimes to not like be perfect all the time, not give yourself a break, but then you also need to be realistic, right? And be like, okay, if I miss one meal in 6 months, like, is that really going to matter? Like, no, like, you can't.
Well, I think that's a great message too, though, is I find myself as a newer pro just because maybe I'm a little older than some of the guys, but I think a lot of guys, they turn pro and then they have this they change what they were doing, and they have like, they look at other pros and then they start comparing, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to go squat 7 or 8 plates like James Holling said, right?
Yeah.
So I need to like stay in my own lane. I think a lot of guys, you know, that's why you see a lot of guys, they turn pro and then they like almost don't look as good as they did when they turned pro, or they can never really nail it again. That's what I see, at least. So I think a lot of that is because they're looking at other people like, oh, I need to, like, not to throw him under the bus because he's a great competitor, but I think Brett Wilkins sort of fell into that when he did the Arnold, and they tried to come in a little fuller. It's like, play your card. Like, you got to this point because you're like nasty peeled, dry, like size didn't really matter for you because you're so nasty. And, you know, and then you're playing other people's games, and now, you know what I mean, you didn't get quite as rewarded, you know?
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I see you guys do that all the time, especially when it comes to just like that whole thing, like trying to come in drier, like when you're a huge guy that does good when you come in full, and like, and vice versa. I think that's a common mistake that a lot of bodybuilders make. But, you know, on that, like, you know, so you did your amateur show, obviously you turned pro, and then you went and did a pro show. So, you know, what was the difference for you, you know, training, like, you know, being in that amateur environment, right, compared to like, you know, being backstage at a pro show and going through that experience? Like what was the differences to you from being an amateur to a pro?
I think definitely the prep was less stressful, because I don't know if anyone knows sort of my story, but I think I missed my pro card by 4 places. So there's always an expectation or a pressure for me. I'm sure you can relate to that when you were getting ready for Canadian nationals, is like, you have this expectation, like, to get it done, you know, so there's a little bit more on your shoulders, you know. So for this pro show, it was like, there was no expectation, you know what I mean? Like, except for myself, like, cause I always put myself on a standard of like conditioning. So no matter what, I'm always like, either way, if I'm going up against Bonac or whoever, you know, like, I'm still going to like focus on bringing that same thing that I knew that got me there. Like we were touching base before, but honestly too, like the nicest thing was like at nationals, it was just, those shows are just such a clusterfuck because there's like 1,000 people there, and they're like, you know, time to pump up, and they're like yelling at you, and it's like, bro, I don't have to pump up for an hour, and like, don't bring your bands back there, and like, they're the police, and you know what I mean? It's like a nightmare. So when I was at like it was weird because, you know, when I did Boston, it was like 11 of us back there just chilling, like no one else there, like, hey, what's, like, everyone was so relaxed and calm, and you know, the expediters weren't like, all right, pump up like an hour early. You know, I hate that shit.
Exactly.
So they just
like professional,
I felt like we were just treated a lot better. It was more calm. All the guys were really nice. So the thing at nationals is I feel like everyone's so competitive that like most people don't really talk to each other. They're sort of like, I'm the same way though. So like, but after the show, I'll talk to people. Like once everything's done, I'll be like, oh, what's, you know, like,
yeah, once the program's in my hand, I'm good to go.
yeah. But the pro show, I felt like everyone was like, even, you know, Justin and William were like talking like they're friends, and, you know, Justin's like bumping fists with everyone. So it was pretty cool in that regard.
I think there's a different level of respect too, you know. I think because you know, the amateurs, like everybody's just scratching and clawing, get that pro card.
Right.
When you're pro, it's like, you know, you start fresh again. It's a level playing field again, right? And there's a mutual respect that everybody's putting in the work, an equal amount of work, right? And at the end of the day, a lot of it, conditioning is basically the one thing that you can control. You know, your size is, you know, your size, and basically other than that, it's genetics. You know, it's not like you're going to do anything that's going to put you ahead of anybody else at the pro level. At that point, you just respect everybody else because they've all done the same shit you have, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and I saw on your Instagram, like you posted a picture with William and Steve when you were at the Boston. So, like, did you have a moment there, like when you were on stage with them, or like when you first walked backstage and you were just like, holy shit, like these are guys I looked up to for the last like 5 or 6 years or whatever?
I'm gonna pull that up again.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, like, I won't lie, like there was moments where I was like shitting my pants a little bit, like especially like 2 weeks out, I'm like, bro, what the hell are you doing? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, definitely like laying in bed, like thinking about this, like, what the fuck, like. And then no, but backstage, I mean, everyone was just so cool and stuff. I wasn't really, I guess, intimidated. I guess I become more intimidated when I know it's really, really close between me and someone else. Yeah. So I think the gap is so far that it's just like whatever, you know, like, I don't know, like, so that's why I was saying with nationals is like, I felt like everyone was like so close that it's almost like you're more competitive, you're more antsy, or you have more anxiety. Where here I was like, I'm realistic. Like, I'm not going to come in and like beat Justin like out of nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So I guess there was a little bit more ease there. And like, obviously these guys are some people I've looked up to, especially Steve, who's been doing this since I remember him doing teenage nationals, you know what I mean? And like when he was 20 and he's like 38 now, 37, whatever. So he's someone I've been watching for a really long time. So that was really cool. And I remember like one of my first MD magazines was him and Antoine. Actually, they were like 21 years old and they're training arms or whatever. So it was like one of my first MDs. So that was pretty dope because I was like, man, that's crazy. Like before I even like touched a weight, pretty much I had that MD and now I'm like here. Yeah, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a pretty big show to do for your first show, like just considering like the lineup especially. And but I mean, you brought an unreal look, man. I think everybody was really impressed, like for your first pro show. I actually really like your physique, man. I think you're really like well proportioned. Like, you know, there's no like big gaps anywhere at all. I think you're just like most new pros, myself included, that just need more beef.
More time. Yeah, just more time. I mean, you definitely held your own, man. You definitely held standing beside Justin, who's one of the biggest guys.
Yeah, right. Your back matches are pretty good with him, and he's known for his back. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, you know.
Yeah, I guess like the best part of the show was just like seeing those. Like, I didn't really feel like I was like, obviously I'm not like close to beating him, but I wasn't like blown away. Like, who's that small guy on the stage? You know, like
totally.
So that was sort of like a cool feeling. And then, I don't even know where I was going with this, but no. So the reason I was just saying, like, because Boston was such a tough show, like I did it because it was literally I'm like 30 minutes north of Boston. So it was one of those things. It was like really cheap for me to do. You know, it was the first time they had the Boston show. So they've never had a show up here, you know, pro show. So it was one of those things like after nationals, it was sort of a no brainer for me because it was like, and also, you know how some of these pro shows are, they like pop up and they might not come back. So it was one of those things where I was like, I better take advantage of this. And it wasn't really thinking like any kind of way. It was just like, well, I felt like I would not get like embarrassed. So I was just like, well, we'll just jump right in and see how we do. And the best part about it was, honestly, I beat everyone that I sort of thought I could or wanted to. There wasn't a whole bunch of people. There was like 3 other people behind me, but like the next person in line was Regan.
Yeah,
you know,
sure. I mean, yeah, you make realistic expectations for yourself and you fulfill them. So, I mean, I think like, I hope I have a pro debut as good as yours, you know, to be honest, especially how you did it, like coming off the show, like you did. Right. But,
I think that's the thing too, is like, you know, being realistic. So I'm always the type of person where I make small goals, get that goal, and then go to the next one instead of being like, I'm going right to the Olympia. You know, it's like chipping away.
Everyone else does. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to ask you then did you have a specific goal going into Boston? Because you said you didn't really have any expectations, but what was that small goal? Was it to beat those guys, or was it to, you know, just to stand next to, you know, XYZ and like hold your own, or what was that specific goal that you had going into Boston?
I guess, you know, probably to be able to stand next to these guys and think I actually somewhat compared. Like I said, like I'm not like beating these guys, but to stand next to them and be like, okay, I'm not embarrassed about this. You know, I think that was like my main focus. And obviously, like I said, staying in my own lane was my biggest in my head. It was just like, you know, like I know conditioning gets rewarded, so I just need to like do what I need to do. And like you said, it's not like I'm going to put on any more muscle, you know? So, but yeah, like my other focus was, I mean, you know how it is, like it's competitive. So like, if you look at someone on the list, you said, okay, I could probably beat him. Like it's an iffy. So I want to beat him. So I felt like that was how it was with those other guys, you know? So, and that was successful in that way. Cause like I said, like I knew like, you know, it's Regan and like all these guys have won pro shows ahead of me. So it's like, I wasn't going in there like thinking I was going to beat him. I wish I would have got a little bit more comparison with Regan because he was like really off, but obviously he's a much better bodybuilder than me. But I was on and he was a little off. So I was like, give me a little bit more chance. But I don't know if you guys watched the live stream, but it actually was pretty cool because I started out like, I think last and then they moved me. And then there was another guy in second callouts that they brought down with us and I ended up placing ahead of him. So that was cool. Cause like, you know how it is sometimes when you like, I don't know if you guys have been in that position where you're like on the end and you sort of work your way in. That was pretty cool.
That's what happened to me at Puerto Rico. I ended up going from 11th to 6th.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's
I was blown away, but at first I was so disappointed, you know.
Well, that's the thing is like a message to some people is like, you just got to always have that fight mentality, especially at the pro shows, because now you get 2 comparisons, one in the morning, one at night. So a lot of people that maybe are amateurs don't realize, but every show pretty much you get a morning and a night. So it's like you got to be all in until the end. Whereas nationals, I feel like, you know, it's more like you're done at the morning, and it's like, unless you get a rejudge, it's really rare. So it's one of those things you got to like, can't be disappointed. You just got to fight, and hopefully you can climb up the rankings, you know?
Yeah, I think you see it often where you see guys come back to the night show and beat someone that they maybe shouldn't have, but because the one guy slipped. So it's always possible to move up. You just, like you said, you have to keep that positive attitude with it. You can't just be like, oh, fuck this, and, you know, I'm just going to go fucking eat ice cream now. Because that's not professional anyways, you know. It's like you got to see through it to the end and be your best, and you got to smile even when even when you don't get the placing you want. Just fucking, you're there, man. You're there to do the work. You're there as a professional bodybuilder. You gotta showcase yourself the very best you can, and the judges notice that shit. Even when you're on the sidelines, you know, if you're standing there looking like you're all pissed off and like letting your gut hang out, they will see that.
Yeah.
And they will.
You're done then. Like that's what I was just about to say. Like because you don't know what their plans are, and you don't know what they're talking about, who they're trying to compare. They could be, you know, have you in 3rd place and push you off to the side right away and have plans on bringing you back, right? But then if you act like an idiot just because you think you didn't get the call that you want, you could blow a big chance. But sometimes I think what happens in a lot of cases there, and it's just like an observation for me, but obviously like every show there's hype and around like a certain person or a couple people or so-and-so who has a big social media following is doing the show. So more attention gets put on them. Like, do you think that can like have an effect on the judges, at least like their initial look? Because I find sometimes it just seems like the first call out is picked like super fast, and then the second call out will come out, and then you'll see some guys where you're like, man, I'm pretty sure he's better than so-and-so on the first call out. And then those changes will happen. So do you guys think like social media kind of has an impact going into a show on who gets like more of a look?
Well, I think so. I mean, especially now in these days, I know Tyler's on like Instagram and stuff, and Billy and Jack Sullivan, like, so those are some of the newer judges. And, you know, I definitely know they like pay attention to that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not like, you know, I think it's not more intentional, but it's a human instinct, right? So I know that face, you know what I'm saying? So if there's a guy they've never seen before, they're just going to be like, not necessarily be as attention to detail, I feel like. But if it's, and then not only that too, if it's like, okay, like Justin or, you know, Akeem or whatever, like as soon as they walk out, they're like, oh, there's Akeem, you know, it's just a natural reaction, I feel like, you know?
Yeah, no, that's
true. I agree.
But I think honestly, I felt, what's that?
Sorry, I was going to say, I think a lot of it is, like you said, subconscious. You know, unless it's someone who really stands out, because then I think if you really stood out, they would give you that look. But that's hard to do if you're not even on the radar to begin with, right?
Well, that's another point to tie in what we were just talking about is you can't get discouraged, because if you're a new guy who looks nasty and then you're not in the first call out, well, they might not notice you at first, but they give you a lot of comparisons in the pro league, I think, compared to like amateur. So it's like, if you hang tight, you know, you could work your way up and, you know, climb up into like, you know, second, third, if you're really that good, you know, so you might just get a little bit of miss, you know?
Yeah.
And it depends on who you stand with on the first walkout. It depends on who you're standing with, you know, because then, like you said, you do get more comparisons. So even if you're in a second or even a third call out, if you're smashing everybody in that third call out, they'll put you in the second to see how you're looking against them. And if you're smashing all those guys too, they'll put you in the first. So it, like, you know, again, like it all just comes down to like just being able to hold that professionalism and know what you're capable of when you're up there. You can't feel defeated, even though you might want to.
Right. Well, that's too, like, I know, like with my physique, it depends on the person, but for me, I don't really have a lot of wow factor when I walk out there, but I usually get harder as I pose. And like, you can, as I do like go through the poses, you start to realize like, oh, he's not as, he's more complete than I thought, you know, when you start comparing with other people. So some people might have a wacky wow factor and they automatically get that first call out. Whereas someone, if you just have a really put together physique, it doesn't really stand out. But as you get compared to other guys, you know what I mean? You start to move up because they're like, oh, well, he's not missing this, but that guy is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like structure seems to like kind of wow people right away. Like, you know, so like Regan's always going to be in first call out every show he does. He comes out, he's just absolutely huge, right? But then when you start standing next to guys and posing, then this conditioning matters a lot more, obviously, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have shredded glutes and you're standing next to a bigger guy, but his hamstrings and glutes are fat. Like, it's not a very good look for him. So, but so one thing I wanted to ask you is like, since you turned pro, like how has life changed for you? Like, or has it at all?
It's actually changed more than I thought it would do. So that's cool. Because sometimes you hear people like, especially these days and age, like, oh, well, you get a pro card and it doesn't really mean shit, which is sort of true. But I think it helped me that I did Boston, because for me too, it made me feel like I was a pro. I don't know how you feel because you haven't done a pro show yet, but it's almost like you finally do a show and it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like it sunk in more for me, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people were there, like, not to like, I'm a pretty modest guy, but it was pretty cool. Like people were like asking to take my picture there. I mean, it was my hometown area, so that would help.
Yeah,
it was like pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, like I'm like, oh, this is weird, and then like, even though I went about it myself, like I got a couple guest posing gigs, but I reached out. I mean, but that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? But I think that made it more real, for me too, because it's now like, okay, I'm doing stuff as a pro and I'm actually getting paid too. Not like a bunch of money, but it sort of separates you from like,
absolutely.
Let's be realistic. There's some people with pro cards that walk around and you're like, are they pro? Like,
No, I think it comes down to what you do with it, right? Ultimately,
right.
Like you said, I think that was a really good thing that you said there, was that you reached out for guest posing spots, because, how are people going to find you if you're a brand new pro? There's 100 brand new pros. How are you going to separate yourself? Well, you got to be the guy that's going out there and getting the work,
Right.
Yeah, and how are people going to know you're interested, right? And then that's your network. That's how you build your relationships. Like, you can guest pose in that place again in the future, and they can know other promoters and pass the word on. Like, hey, Nate came, he's great, talks to competitors, and like that's all you want. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's huge too, because there's less and less guest posing and stuff like that now than ever. Like less seminars and stuff like that. So like, I'm a big advocate of just keeping that stuff alive. Like, I know myself, like, I made it out to the Toronto Pro this year from like where I live in Newfoundland. Like I went and did a seminar in BC. Like I'm all about like just keeping that stuff alive. Because when I was coming up, I live in like Newfoundland, Canada. I'm not sure if you know where that is.
It's really small, right?
It's pretty rural, yeah. And there's just not a lot of that stuff here. And especially like from terms of like a fitness, like we barely have anything, let alone a fitness culture, right?
Yeah.
So the odd time we got something, or there was something like close by that I could like, just an hour flight to or something, like I jumped on it and soaked it up. So yeah, I'm just big on not letting that stuff die out.
Yeah.
Well, I think it like, we were touching base, like building relationships with like promoters and people in your area. Like that's another thing too. I go to all the shows around here, and I think the promoters and that they really like that. You know what I mean? They see you like that, you like bodybuilding, you're giving back to bodybuilding. I think that goes noticed, especially especially in my area. I don't know how it is in other areas, but like I've gotten really close with a lot of like the, expediters, the, promoters, all the people that sort of put on the show. So that's always like cool, to walk down there and everyone sort of knows who you are,
It's definitely like that in Canada too, because the Canadian Physique Alliance is, compared to like the NPC, it's relatively small. So like all the promoters basically know each other. So like you were saying, if you can kind of get, a good relationship with one promoter, they're going to talk to another promoter. And the other thing too is, I realized recently is that like, especially after COVID, man, like the fans, they appreciate it so much. Like they're just so grateful to like be able to like talk to a pro and like, see a pro, like, do some posing on stage, because it's motivating for them. Most people who are competing, they want to get there too. And it's like, oh, wow, like, I've seen this guy come up, like I've been following him. Like I had people telling me like, I've been following you for 10 years. I'm like, holy fuck, like that's crazy. Because you don't really think about that when you're doing your thing. But yeah, like it's wild.
That was one of the biggest things for me, like when I turned pro, especially like you said, in Canada, it's kind of smaller. So it's like, I feel like there could be more hype about it here than, when you turn, not in your case, Nate, but like a lot of guys turn pro in nationals.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, just like the way people talk to me, and like younger guys like talk to me, and like if I give them a compliment, they're like, "Oh, that means a lot coming from a pro," and stuff like that. Like that stuff that really used to be like, "Whoa," like just a dude, like that. Also,
I think that goes a long way too in like the business of bodybuilding, is like to talk to people, to build relationships with like just normal guys that go to the gym, you know what I mean? And I think that goes a long ways. And I'm noticing it, like, as far as like, you know, I've always sort of been that guy, was just like outgoing, like, hey, I'm just who I am, like, you know, talk to people, and they respect that. They really like that. And I think that goes a big way in your fan base, because even like, you know, I always look up to like sort of like Dusty, because like he wasn't like the greatest pro, but like look at what he's done. You know what I'm saying? Because he's actually done the business of bodybuilding. He's got out there, he's talked to people, he's traveled the world, he's done all this stuff. It's like, just because you're not going to be Mr. Olympia doesn't mean you can't be a great representative, you know, of bodybuilding.
Yeah, people just love bodybuilding. Like, you know, that's
Right.
even the culture. It's like, okay, we all know who the best is, and like, you know, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But, you know, that was the same as me when I was coming up as an amateur. Like, I just wanted to be around pros, like people that knew more than me about the thing I was passionate about, you know, so I could meet them, like learn from them, see how they do things. Like that was the coolest thing to me when I was coming up. Like I couldn't get enough information in me. So, and that's kind of one thing I always said to myself, like, you know, when I turned, because I had a couple of experience with a couple of pros that like I looked up to, and they weren't like really cool with me. And
Yeah.
it makes you feel shitty, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing for me. I'm like, you know, no matter who messages me on Instagram, no matter who comes up to me in person, like I'm always going to give them like the time of day. Like even if I'm not,
Right.
because you don't know what that can do for someone, like
Oh,
being,
yeah.
being in the position that we're in. Because a lot of people are trying to get to where we're to.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a like a memorable experience when you were kind of coming up that, you know, like someone kind of, you know, whether it was a pro or just someone you looked up to, they spoke to you in a way that motivated you, that you remember even now?
Well, I got one that comes to my mind is Fuad Abiad, actually, because it was after I did right after I did nationals in 2018. I got like 8th place or something like that. I was pretty disappointed, and I came off stage, and like I kind of knew him like sort of before, just because like a seminar I went to, and he saw me come off. He's like, "How'd you do?" And I told him, and he was like, "Well, man," he's like, "Where'd you like what was your goal?" And I was like, "Well, I was really hoping for top 3." And he was like, "Well, if you got 2nd or 3rd place," he was like, "nothing would have changed from where you're at right now." He was like, "Your ultimate goal is a pro card, I guess." And I was like, "Yeah, it is, man." And he was like, "Well, I mean, you still got to go do the work to get to that, to have that physique, to get a pro card, like regardless." He was like, "So even if you took 2nd or 3rd, he's like, you're still going home and doing the same thing that you got to do." He was like, "You need more time." He was like, "Take a year or 2 off, like for an off season." He's like, "Then try again." And it's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And it worked out for me. So that's just something that stuck with me. Just that he took the time just to kind of like give me a few words, and it really helped me pick my head up that day, man. Because like, you know what it's like, we all do, you know, going into a bodybuilding show, you put 20 weeks into it, doesn't go your way, like you get over it, but that initial moment's like, you know, it's so yeah, I thought that was awesome of him just to like take 5 minutes and do that, right?
What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything that sticks out like crazy, but I do know like it's pretty cool, because those of that don't know, me and my coach Andrew Barry, we've been together for like 7-8 years now. So that was actually my only coach I've ever had. So like to come up together, and like I think I don't think he realized, like, not to say I'm like gonna be the best in the world, but I don't think he realized like how good I was gonna be. So like to see him like see and start to believe, like not that he thought I was shitty, you know what I'm saying, but like to see where I was and to where I am now, and now he's like nah, man, like I believe you could be on the Olympia stage, like whether that's points or whatever, you know what I mean, just to get there. I think you guys can relate, like that's sort of a goal of, you know, a lot of ours, just to get to the stage, you know, that big stage. And for him to say he thinks I can do that is, you know, pretty cool, because he's not a coach that, you know, you get some coaches that sort of like, oh yeah, you're gonna fucking do this and that. He's never that type of guy. You know, he doesn't really go out of his way to like, he's not very over complimentary, which I like, because when he says something, he means it, right? So that was pretty cool, you know, just for him to, you know, I feel like I worked hard for him to believe in me, how far I could go, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I mean, I understand that completely, especially because he knows everything that you've been through to get to where you get to where you are, right? So, have you been competing for 7 years?
Yeah. So I did my first NPC show in 2016, and I think another cool piece is like, I think a lot of people, I'm sure you guys can relate to this too, but when you're starting out, like no one really said to me like, oh, you're going to be a pro, you know what I mean? And even if I was like, I still won overalls, and I was never like a hyped guy, because I never, like I said before, I never had crazy wow, you know what I'm saying? So those guys that usually have the bells and whistles, like the crazy arms, the crazy legs, everyone's like, oh my God, like, you know, going nuts over those guys. I was never that guy. So like now people are starting to be like, oh yeah, like you're going to be a great pro. And I'm like, no one said that to me like 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
People tell you that you got good genetics.
Yeah, exactly.
I've gotten that a few times in the last couple of years. And I'm like, I've been competing for 10 years. After my second show and after my second bodybuilding show, the photographer of the show hauled me aside and told me I should probably do men's physique.
Oh my God.
That's right.
Yeah, dude.
What did you say?
That's a great story to look.
Yeah. That's, actually, and this guy was actually, I think he was there. Yeah, they're good people. I love these people. And they were the photographers for nationals. So I know, like, I don't think he really meant anything like to be offensive. I think he was actually just trying to help me out. Like, he's like, listen, like, don't waste your life doing this, kid. Like, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, exactly. Like, even though he's a great guy, like, I still proved him wrong. It's something I still think about.
Well, that's pretty cool to look back on for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. So,
I got one too. I was training for a junior nationals in 2014. And there was a pro here, I'm not going to name names, but he won the Canadian Nationals in 2014 and got his pro card that same year. And I was just working out. I remember I was doing stiff leg deadlifts, and I remember I put the weight down and he came over to me. I look over my shoulder and he's like, hey, bro, he's like, I don't know why you're training so hard. You're not going to win anyways. I don't even remember what I said to him because I feel like I was just so like, wow. Like I was just like, dumbfounded. Yeah, I was in shock. I was like, what the fuck? But it was funny because I was just like, I like switched something on, or I just got like really, really angry about it. And I ended up winning that show. And then not only that, but then a couple years later, 2019, actually, he approached me, he saw me again. He approached me, he said, I want to coach you. And he coached me for a little while for free.
That's great.
So it was, and actually one of my clients had this experience too. She said she was at the gym one time and she said that, some other women were like pointing at her and laughing or something like that. And she's like, I feel so bad about it. And I'm like, and I told her that exact same story. And she's like, oh my God, that happened to you? And I'm like, yeah, it happened to me. And I just fucking proved him wrong. And that's all you got to do. Right. That's all you can do.
Well, I think that too, like that's a little message because how many guys, I'm sure you get this too, where they message you and like, so what do you think I could do? Like, what do you think my genetics are? It's like, bro, give yourself, like, don't ask anyone. What is it going to make a difference? First of all. Mm-hmm. And second of all, most of us don't really know what our true genetics are until we fucking do this shit as hard as we can for like, 8, 9 years, 10 years, it's like, you don't really know, like we all just said sort of like, yeah, when we started out, like everyone pretty much told us we sucked, and now we're all pros. So,
yeah.
Yeah, man, if you want it bad enough, you'll really surprise yourself. But it's just like what we know, but like it's so hard to put into words like what it really takes.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, like the last 9 years, like since I decided I wanted to do it, it's like every day it's like all I thought about, right?
Yeah.
I'm still one that like like even now, like I'm planning to do the Toronto Pro for my next show, and that's next June. And and it's all I think about. Like, honestly, it's on my mind, like almost constantly. It's like subconscious thinking. Like because I know every task I'm doing now, even though I'm more than 12 months away from that show, it's like, it matters to me. Like,
you're like laying in bed, like going through your next workout, you're going through your meals. Like, am I doing this correct? Am I doing that right? Like,
and it's always, and people say they want to be a pro, but they're struggling. Like, they're like, oh, I can never get that 6 meal and I'm too full. Right.
The other thing too, the other thing too is when people say they want to be a pro, but then they just give up randomly. Like, you can't. Yeah. You literally can't. That the main thing, if you want to get there, is you just fucking can't give up.
Yeah, like for me, anytime, like, I mean, if I lost a show, I'd be pissed off for half an hour, but like, I would like right away just collect myself. Like, okay, what do I got to do? Why did I lose? Like, hey,
how can I get better right now?
Yeah, exactly. Outcomes, like the shit that happened to me, like in my amateur career, never deterred me from my goal. It didn't change my goal. My goal was I was going to be a pro no matter what. Right. Yeah. It was just time and me just trying to figure out my body and find the right coach and all that shit.
Well, I'm sure you guys can all relate. Like any show you did, whether you won or lost, the next day or the next 2 days, you're already coming up with a game plan. How are you going to get better, right?
Yeah, exactly. It just didn't matter. Like, what I mean? It was just, and it's the same. Like Mike, like Ron, like we went to get a bite to eat after I won my pro card, and I was just looking at him smiling, and he was like, "Don't ask me what show you should do." And I was like, you know what I'm thinking about, right? And he was like,
Yeah.
not this year. He was like, we'll do next year. And I'm like, okay, that's all I need. I just need someone to tell me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
now I'm good. Now I can get in off season mode. Like, we're good to go. Like, you know?
Yeah. That's
So Nate, coming out of the Boston Pro and looking at your physique and how you stacked up, what do you think you need to do in order to be in that top call out for the next one?
I think, obviously more size is first and foremost, just everywhere. And then I think for me, my shape has slowly gotten better because I've really been mindful of my waist. So I think, like I said, I got to play what works for me. So if I can keep my waist tight and keep my shape relatively decent for what I can bring, I think that's a good card for me. Whereas a lot of guys, I feel like I could expose them on that. So, and just like more, like I have a pretty good back, but I think I need more like lats, more width to the back double bicep. Cause now like it's crazy. You don't really realize like some of your weaknesses, on the amateur circuit. And then you go out against pros and you're like, oh shit, I thought my delts were my best body part, but I actually could probably use more delts now. Right.
Man, 100%. Well, it's like you're notorious for your back, right? And it's like, your back is still sick, but then like you still get next to a guy that has a slightly better back than you. And you're like, well, shit, like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good reality check though, because I feel like, do you find like since you did that pro show that like you've kind of like, I don't know, I know you're just getting into your off season, but like, has your mindset even like changed from a perspective of like what you need to put into this to continue to improve? Like,
well, one of the best things that I probably got out of doing Boston, was like, my confidence. So I'd never been a really confident guy. I've always been like like hopefully I can get a pro card, or if I do, like, I'll probably never do anything with it. So to stand on a Boston, like I said, I'm not saying I beat any of those guys, but it almost gave me like a look into the future. Like, oh, I could actually be like, maybe a top 5 guy, maybe a top 3 guy, and like I said, it's the small goals, chipping away at. So I'm not going into it like, oh, I got to win my next show. I got to place top 5 is my thought. You know what I'm
you
saying?
got to convince yourself, right? You got to convince yourself of like you're like, it seems to me like you're just in constant validation. It's like you almost like don't really believe something until you do it, and then you're like, okay, maybe I can do this. Like, let's try.
Right, 100%. And it holds me back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I wish I could be, one of those guys like a Nick Walker or Sean Clarita. Like everyone told me I couldn't do it, but I believe since I was 2 years old that like it's just not me though. I've tried to fake it until I make it, and I literally. One year I wrote on, this many days till pro card or whatever, but it was like, I didn't feel it. Right.
Right. Yeah, man. I would be the same way with some of that stuff. Like some people say, do that thing. Like you just got to write it down. Like, and then I'm like, I don't see the difference.
Yeah.
Still just want to do it.
Do you guys, maybe if you don't write it down, but do you guys have that conversation with yourself? Like, I'm going to fucking get it. I mean, it might not be now, it might not be tomorrow, but I'm going to get it. Like, do you just keep, even when you're like kind of feeling down about whatever happened, or like you're not seeing the progress you want, do you have that conversation with yourself where you tell yourself, I'm going to get there? Or is it still like I hope, or like, we'll see what happens kind of mentality?
I'm definitely still I hope. Like, I'm always like, even when I was getting ready for nationals, like I knew I was really good. And I was like, well, I should have a pretty good chance of getting my card. But like, it depends on who shows up is what I would in my head, Yeah. So I'm always like, well, it depends on who shows up. I'm never like, it doesn't matter who shows up. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, like, I'm just like obsessed with like improvement. I find like in all aspects of my life, like, right now I'm getting ready to buy a house. Right. So like, I'm obsessed with that, like doing that as perfect as I possibly can. Like the bodybuilding never gets turned off. So that's like, Toronto Pro is always on my mind, like making sure I'm doing everything I got to do every day, check all the boxes, like So yeah, I feel like that's just how I operate. Instead of like, something will just get on my mind. Like I'm like, okay, this has to get completed. Like this is a large objective I have. I have to do everything like every single day to make that thing happen. And I just do it until it's done. But I think some of that is also powered by like anxiety that I have of like of failing or going backwards. Right. Like especially like in business, like I really push myself like with my coaching business. Sometimes I probably take on clients when I shouldn't, like when my load's too heavy. Yeah. But like it's just like this thing of like constantly improving, never going backwards that I have. So that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that holds me in line too. Like I can relate to that because, even if I don't think I'm going to win a show, I always have an expectation and a standard of myself to bring my absolute best and be nasty conditioned. So I think that's, I always know if I bring that, like there's a chance.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I guess that's sort of like where my hope is in the back of my mind. Like I never go into a show like, oh, I'm going to win this, but I'm like, if I come in at my absolute best, there's a chance because I know guys don't come in their absolute best.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I have that in mind. Like that's something that's always on my mind too, is conditioning. And
Right.
even now, again, like thinking about my show like a year out, it's like, I'm going to obviously do everything I have to do to have a productive off season, but like, I'm not going to do anything that could, potentially hurt my conditioning down the road, because that's what got me my pro card was my size plus my conditioning. And I know I'm not going to have the most muscle when I do my first pro show, like on that stage, whatever stage it is. But if I come in like feel like I know I can, like again, same as you, I'm like, that's going to put me in the first call out. And then from there, it's just, comparing. So
exactly.
I do think that's one of the most important things for people that are listening that want it or that aspire to kind of win pro cards or, to be the best businessman or to buy a house, whatever the case may be. Like you have that goal, of course, like I want to win that pro card. But if that is the only thing you're focused on, you're not focused on the things that you have to do to get there. Like conditioning, for example, if you can focus on just everything that you do that that's involved in that process of being the most conditioned that you can be on that stage, then the byproduct of that is winning the show, and you break that down into little things. It's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna eat more than my meal plan. I'm not gonna, fucking slack off on the Stairmaster if you're doing Stairmaster. I'm not going to hang on to it. I'm going to fucking push every minute of every second of every day that I can. And just breaking it down like that, sometimes I feel like that gets lost because everybody wants it to happen so quickly. We all want it to happen as quickly as possible, but unless you're focused on every little thing that you can do, all those little aspects, all the mundane tasks, I don't think you get there.
It's just like anything, like the hard, long way is the fastest way. To getting what you want. It's same with someone who just like wants to like lose fat. Like, I had this conversation with clients all the time. They're like, okay, I need to be ready, in 4 weeks for like this event or whatever. And I'm like, okay, like we can probably do that. I'm like, but a week after that event, you're going to be back to where you were. And I'm like, the only way that we can get you to where we need you to get you and sustain what you want is like a 16, 20 week process, maybe longer. Right. And so like, yeah, that's just it. Right. It's just, like to get to where you want to be, like you just have to do it the right way. And like we've all done it the right way now because we've had success, right? So we've identified that, and now it's just like exactly like every day, like especially when it comes to prep, it's like cardio, like obviously get the meals in, like training, like maybe pose twice, like if that's what you need. And it's like you shouldn't be able to rest until those things are done. Like I know I can't. Like if I had 15 minutes of posing I was supposed to do, and I was about to go to bed, I would probably lie. Like this has actually happened. I would probably lie in bed and feel so guilty about not posing. I would get up and go pose for 15 minutes and then go back to bed.
Yeah,
that's funny.
And I think that's just a mindset you have to adopt. And once you do that, and like you yield the results from it, man, it almost becomes like it's always going to be hard, but it almost becomes easy. It's just about kind of flipping the switch and getting in that mode.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, like unless you're a genetic freak and it just comes naturally to you, it's like you have to really, really love bodybuilding and like really love training. You know what I'm saying? Because I think when you were talking about earlier, Robin, about, that guy that wants the pro card and then he like disappears, I think we probably did this because we just love this shit. Right. So it's not necessarily so patience wasn't really like, no one had to tell us to be patient because this is just what we do. This is what we love. Like every day is like Groundhog Day. And this is what we like. It's okay with us. Like we can do that. Where some people, they just can't do that. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And that's people like the big difference between people who want it and don't. It's like, this is going to happen regardless because I can't live without it. Take the pro card away, take the bodybuilding shows away. I'm still eating and training. I'm still fucking doing the same thing. I have to. Like, I can't imagine not. I would be, I would be bothered. I feel like,
Well, it's funny because when we talk about that little break in the beginning of the show, it's like you almost itch to get back to like the 6 meals a day. You know what I mean? Like waking up early in the morning. Like, so it's like, it's a nice break, but then you're like in the back of your mind, like by the time Friday, Saturday rolls around, you're like, oh, I got to get back home and get back in my zone.
I think it helps you to keep loving it. Right. It's like you almost need to take it away. And like I was having this conversation with my girlfriend earlier. It's like, how long are we going to be on our trip before I want to like come home? Like, you know, like can I last 3 days, maybe 4 days before I want to like, you know, get back into my routine. But it's almost like, you know, force yourself out of it. You get back in it, you appreciate it that much more. You put that much more effort into it. Like, that's kind of how I look at, like, you know, like get away from training for a week just so you love it more when you get it back. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been, I was just going to say, we've all been there where the gym feels like a job. And that's when you're like, okay, I need a little bit of time off, you know, because when you're going in and you're not enjoying it, having fun, like obviously at the end of prep, like that's expected, like that's how you're going to feel. But, you know, if there's a certain point, you know, I've had a couple of points where I'm just like, okay, this just feels like too much of a job. I'm not enjoying this. I need a couple, maybe 2, 3, 4 days off, you know what I mean? Just to sort of recharge and, you know, itch to get back in the gym.
Yeah, it's important.
That's a good question, you know, because maybe someone who's listening, they might be feeling like they don't always want to go to the gym. Now, how would you kind of, you know, explain to someone when they need to take a break or when they just need to kind of like man up or woman up and just fucking get the work done?
I mean, it depends on the person, because like if it's like, let's say we're speaking to a crowd where it's like guys like us or whatever, you know, like I think it is important to take time off. And I think it's probably one of the most underutilized tools that we have, because like a lot of times I coach people too. And a lot of times I tell them like, oh, they're worried about taking a day off. I'm like, dude, if anything happens, you're going to get better. You know what I mean? Usually 9 times out of 10. So I think a lot of guys, you just have to realize that this is a long game. So a week off here and there isn't going to do shit. And like I said before, it'll probably make you better. Like for me, I know I actually had a lot of really good progress last year before my pro card, because I actually got gyno surgery. So I was out for like 3 weeks and it sucked at the moment. But like after, it was like amazing because I was so fresh. My body felt good. I was itching in the gym, like to get into the gym. My pumps were crazy. Like I felt fresh, you know? So especially guys like us, we've been doing it for, I don't know about you guys, like 10, 15 years, I'm going to assume. You know, your body needs that break. And I also too, like the more muscular you get, I feel like the breaks are more paramount in my opinion, because I don't know about you guys, but it's like easier to get my recovery in a hole, the more muscular I've gotten and the stronger I've gotten.
Yeah.
I've seen it that way for sure.
So are you an advocate of taking more rest days in a week, or do you like to, you know, push it for a while and then take a full week off?
So I really like just, I usually train like 3 days, 1 off, 2 days, 1 off. Usually that's sort of my go-to. Last year I did train 4 days a week and I really loved it. I got super, super strong and everything felt fresh. Like I didn't really hit a wall. So I think that's another thing too, is when people are, you know, trying to figure out their program and stuff, like, or eating diet, how consistent can I do this before I hit a wall? So a lot of guys, you know, will push food really, really hard, like 6,000, 7,000 calories, but then they tap out after a month or two. So is that more beneficial than saying I'm eating 5,000 to 5,500 calories for 9 months straight with no break? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's easy to do too. Like I think people like sometimes need to like seize opportunities in the sense of like, you know, say if you've been training like, you know, 12, 16 weeks straight, you're starting to feel a little beat up and like you have a week coming up where you have some family coming into town, your schedule's going to be all messed up or something like that. And training would be stressful anyway. Like that's when I try to take time off. Like I just traveled for my girlfriend's graduation. I ended up training once or twice actually, but like it's only just because I thought I had more. I had more time than I thought I was going to have, but I was planning on not training. So I'm like, we're driving 8 hours. My meals are going to be off. You know, my recovery. I'm going to a few events. I'm going to be up later than I normally am. So in my mind, at the level we're at, it's like, what's the point in training anyway?
Yeah.
Like I know that like the level I'm at with bodybuilding, like if all those things aren't in line, I'm not going to get shit out of my training session anyway. I'm just going to work out and have like not so good recovery after. So I think people should like use those opportunities to be like, okay, you know what? This will be a stressful weekend or, you know, a stressful week to train if I did it anyway and get my meals in. So let's just scrap it, take a week off, do the best I can with my meals, and then come back when my schedule is back to normal and smash it. Like, you know what I mean? it can make it easier than like forcing yourself, because we have like to take rest days. I think that's what people struggle with, right?
Yeah,
is taking the rest.
It's funny because I can relate to two things you said. One is actually I went to the New York Pro this weekend and I didn't train at all because like the same idea is like I sort of knew like that was my window of opportunity, you know, to sort of take a couple extra days off. And like you said, training on the road sucks. You're driving for, I don't know, or flying for, 4 or 5 hours, whatever. Like your body's like not really optimal. And then like your water intake is usually probably off, that kind of thing. So it's actually funny because I always thought I was neurotic. So I'm glad you said it. So I'm not the only one, but I'd be like, if anything's off or my water's off, like, why am I going to train? Like, this is like, waste,
Well, exactly. It just comes down to discipline. Like for me, you know what I mean? It's almost like I'm feeding an ego that wants to train, because training makes me feel good. And it makes me feel like, okay, all the food I'm eating that day is getting put to use and all these things. Right. But it's like, just about taking a step back and being like, no, like that's actually going to hurt me, not help me like I think it is. Like, in most circumstances, that would be the right thing to do. But because everything else is off track, let's just have some discipline here and take this as like a rest like time. Right. Because you got to do it.
Would all you guys agree that anytime you did take extra rest time, did you feel like it was beneficial or it hurt you?
It's never hurt me.
Yeah,
it's hurt me. I've had 2 weeks off. I went to the cottage for 2 weeks. I didn't train, and when I came back, everything fucking felt like shit. All my joints, my joints hurt for like.
What else did you do at the cottage though?
What did I do?
Yeah, like, did you do anything else? I think your recovery at the cottage.
No, I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. I was just
cool.
chilling. No, I think what it was is just because it was right after I competed at the New York Pro in 2019, and I had specifically planned that 2 weeks off. Like, if I go to the college, there's no gyms. I have to drive like fucking an hour to get to a gym, and not even a good gym. So I'm like, if I go there, I know I'll take that break. And I kind of still ate like a relatively clean diet, but I had like maybe a little bit here and there. But like I was still kind of like OCD about like I got to get my protein in and this and that. But when I came back, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Like I'm gonna do some legs, and it was like I put 135 on the bar, and my knees just felt like so shitty, and everything felt so shitty. But it was obviously temporary. So I think maybe in the long run it helped. In the short term, when I came back, it really felt like crap. But it could have just been inflammation in my body and like residual, like kind of like overcompensation from the prep, anyways, right?
I was gonna say, I think post show is like exempt though, because you know what I mean. Like if you just came off a show, you're probably not going to walk into the gym like feeling amazing, anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that's partially
all the drugs that were numbing you are out of your system then as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but that's the thing is, since then I've never done that again.
That's why you stay on Trent all year round, is it?
Pretty much, yeah.
So
a little bit of deck at least. But I do agree though, because I was the kind of guy who would always train like 6 days a week. And even when I was training with Antoine Vaillant, he was like a 6 days a week guy, and it was just like back, chest, arms, back, legs, shoulders, repeat, rest, repeat. And it was awesome because we were killing it every day. But after a little while of doing that, I was like, this isn't sustainable because my joints hurt now. And so like it was like the first couple of weeks, it was great. And then the next couple of weeks, I started getting weaker. And I'm like, okay, it's too much, especially at this intensity. So I find that is, I've got to train 5 days a week, because if I'm training 6, it's too much. 5 is perfect. I've never done 4. Maybe 4 would be even better. I don't know.
That was the biggest game.
I was going to ask.
Bodybuilding career was when I went from training 6 days a week to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I put on like crazy size that year. That's when I started working with Dorian.
Well, everybody knows you grow when you're resting. You don't grow when you're training. Right. So it's like you just have to keep reminding yourself of that. This is for the long-term gain.
Not young kids. They don't want to believe you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You know how it is, like they're so like advantageous. They're like, let's go. And I try to, like you're coaching people, you guys, it's like you get these kids, you try to tell them to take a day off and they're like, think it's the end of the world. That's why I'm so like making this important, you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people, when your first 5 years, you always think more is better, right? So the biggest thing I learned in bodybuilding was more isn't always better.
Yeah, most of them not really.
Well, because a lot of us, I don't know about you guys, but the first workout routine I followed strictly was the Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's twice a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah, that shit's nuts.
So I was like, anything less than that is slacking off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I get so many people, like like new clients will be like, yeah, like I'm training 6 or 7 days every week, like trying to impress me. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, that's the first thing that has to change. They're
The
like,
big,
"Why?"
the big thing that I see is like over cardioing, like, and people like, especially like, I'm sure you guys have clients like this too. It's like, well, I want to get lean. So they just start doing more cardio. Like, I'm doing an extra 30 minutes a day. And you're like, well, first of all, we didn't discuss that. Second of all, it's not going to benefit you because you're already stressed out. You're not sleeping enough to begin with. You don't necessarily follow your diet plan at 100% anyways. So doing more on top of like an imperfect kind of adherence to your program is just going to hurt you. You're just,
just fucking up the plan.
Yeah, but they're like, oh, cardio burns fat, right? It's kind of hard to get that message across, but
it's a hard conversation to have, man.
It is. Yeah.
I hate talking about metabolic rate with people that they don't even know what a carb is. Like, and like you're trying to explain metabolism, how it works, and it's hard.
But what's interesting is that going back to the first conversation we had about doing the cardio and the Stairmaster, it's like, on paper, the Stairmaster is going to burn the most calories. So if you're on that Stairmaster for an hour, maybe you're going to burn out 1,000 calories, whatever it is. That's great. But for me, I started getting better results. My body changed more in the direction that I wanted to, more muscle, less fat, by going for walks outside in nature. Slow, like low intensity. I probably only burn, 300 calories. I don't really care how many calories I burn because it's more about putting my physiological state in a more positive place versus like, I'm just going to push it as hard as I can constantly and just driving cortisol through the roof.
Well, I think actually it was funny because Ron actually was talking about this on a podcast about like doing like very, very low intensity cardio or very high intensity cardio. Yeah. And when you do that like medium cardio, your body adapts very quickly to that. So it's like you got to do more. Whereas like a lower intensity, like a lot of people do it because we don't adapt to that. You know what I mean? It keeps working essentially. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I pretty much only walk my dogs for my cardio, my last prep, except for like when I was initially trying to like burn fat, like going from off season to prep. Like I did, like I had a few weeks where I pushed kind of hard on the treadmill and Stairmaster, but then like for me, like once things start going, like it's like start to like feed me up. Like so, I was like walking my dogs for 40 minutes a day for my cardio. And then like, as we got closer to the nationals, like my metabolism was so fast. Like I was eating Burger King every second day for like 2 weeks, like going into the show. It was just nice. Crazy. Yeah. It was just a circumstance of being in shape for so long. Right.
Yeah.
But I think, but it's so different person to person, right? Because like, this is one thing I see too. Cause like a lot of us bigger guys have kind of realized that like our cardio can truly be steps because we have so much muscle. Right.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is like, even like bikini girls and stuff, like I've had clients do this because like for my cardio, I'll just like put like total minutes across the week, right?
Yeah.
And then like I'm getting clients update me, and they're like, "Yeah, like I did like half of my cardio outside walking my dog, and it's like 120-pound girl, right?
Yeah.
That's not cardio for you." I'm like, "That's just walking." Yeah,
that's activity or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, so that's one thing like with that. Sort of that.
Well, yeah, people don't realize like us walking, our heart rate gets to like 120. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what
325, like walking my dogs. But like I walk like 2 or 3 kilometers with my dogs. Like come back, I got a sweat going. Like got to change. Like, stuff. Like
No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, honestly, like I do really enjoy just doing the walks outside in nature too because it feels good. It's like. It's better than just sitting on the fucking treadmill. I mean, if you can, right? Like,
well, we live our whole lives inside, right?
Yeah,
like we're like we're working on the computer, on our phones all the time, in the gym, like at home eating. Like we don't really get out very much. So if you can get out for that 40 or 50 minutes, it'd probably be good for your head in the long run, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think too, like the bodybuilding has came a long ways because, like I was saying earlier, it's like. Now we realize like much more like we can do this kind of stuff. Whereas like back in the day, it was like you only did the stairs. You only finished your week off with fish and or tilapia and green. You had to eat tilapia or whatever, like in your prep. And now it's like people are like, we keep our ground beef in all the way up to the show. Which back in the day, would be like, what? You didn't pull your red meat, or you know what I'm saying? Like, shit like that is like now we figured out like, okay, there's like an easier, better way to do this.
Yeah, I feel like we've debunked a lot in the last 10 years.
Yeah. For sure.
We've kind of flipped everything on its head, eh?
Pretty much like this. We've been put in a situation, I guess, with all like the sources we have accessible to us to question everything. You know what I mean? Like you just said, like fish and asparagus was the way to go. And it's like you're probably hard pressed to find someone that does that. Like, or truly believes in that. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And I think the thing is too, is like, because this is a long-term gain, you kind of have to do the things that you enjoy doing to a certain extent. You know, it's like, that's going to help you feel good. You enjoy what you're doing. You love what you're doing. That's why you're doing it. If you hated every minute of every day, it's like, that's not sustainable. Because I've had people who just hated dieting so much. They're like, I hate dieting. I'm so miserable. I'm like, well, why do you do this then? You know, what is this bringing you besides just misery and kind of like everybody around you feeling that energy? You know, it's like, that's not sustainable. That's not a good way of going about it. You know, so that's why there's so many different approaches. And like, you know, like we were talking about, it's like everybody is different. And it's good to recognize that what you do is what you do, and you don't have to do what, you know, what I do or what Nate does or what, you know, Big Mo does or what Ronnie Coleman does. It's like, find what works for you and just roll with it. Roll with it for as long as you fucking can.
Well, dude, it's like at the end of the day, if you're making progress, you're putting on more muscle, you're coming in shape. Like at the end of the day, the judges don't give a fuck what you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter, even though like how like, you know, wrong it might be to like, you know, fitness culture or whatever. Like if you found something that works for you, then run with it. But that's half the battle in bodybuilding. You know, I know it was for me. Like you know, your years like trial and error, just trying different things until you finally figure out how to grow, and then you finally figure out how to get in shape, and you finally figure out how to handle your water a week out. You know, and it's just about finding all those things, right?
Well, dude, it's funny too.
I don't know if you guys feel like this too, but I feel like a lot of people are almost scared to experiment with themselves and like try different things. Yeah. They're always looking like, what's the perfect split, or like what's the perfect macros, or like, you know, what's the perfect this? And it's like, there's no perfect. I can't tell you what perfect is, but we can work towards making it optimal for you, you know?
Well, that's what I was about to touch on. It was like, you know, so I really brought my legs the last year and a half or whatever, like dramatically from when I was competing at nationals prior. And what I started doing was I fell in love with the leg press, you know what I'm saying? So I wasn't squatting. So in the back of my head, I was like, man, this is wrong. I'm not squatting. Am I not hardcore? Right.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So that's the same idea though. I went to the drawing board because my legs weren't getting better. And then I tried something and it worked. You get what I'm saying? Like, so that's what you were saying, Robin, is like, you know, it's okay to experiment, find out what works for you, because it's not going to work the same for everyone else. So, you know, squats might not do shit for my legs, but it might, like, you know, Tom Platz, you know, he did all right. So it's like, you know, one of those things, it's like, okay, it's okay to, at the end of the day, if you're making progress and you're coming in shape, like that's all that really matters, right? Like we were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just switching gears a little bit, I want to ask you, do you have a next show in mind already, or not yet? Just focusing on off season right now.
No, I'm sure Morgan can relate. I already got the next show in line. So I'm sure you're the same. You sound like the same way.
You need to have a target.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I already got Indy. It's probably going to be the first one next year.
Nice.
Do a little run New York. Maybe see you boys up in Toronto. Who knows?
Dude, let's go, man. Let's fucking go. That would be sick. Yeah, we used to get.
I don't know what's it like right now with like the vax and all that shit.
I don't think I'm not sure if we're traveling.
It'll probably get better next year, I'm hoping.
I've actually heard of people traveling like internationally from Canada that didn't have any issues, like, didn't even get asked about it. So I would imagine by next year you'll probably be in the clear.
Yeah.
But Toronto's a cool show, man. Like they really make it super easy and everything like that. So, and there's a big expo attached to that show as well.
Dorian Gym is pretty close too, right?
Oh, dude, yeah, you're with HD now, right?
Yeah.
Dude, awesome, man. Yeah, dude, you got to come down.
Yeah.
You got to come down to Berlin.
If you probably come down, no matter what. I'll let you know for sure. Because he was like, "Oh, we have an Airbnb or some shit you can stay in," or I don't fucking know, but they have like a house up there.
Yeah, there's Muscle Mansion. Yeah, I stayed there back in February for a week. Yeah, it's cool, man. Like you get like your own like room and kitchen and everything. So you're completely set up. You're like maybe 5-10 minute drive from the gym. But dude, you go in that gym, you're not gonna want to leave. That's the only thing.
Yeah, right.
It's insane, bro. Yeah.
So where do you train right now, Nate?
So we got a couple of gyms around here. Nothing crazy though. I mean, I got like an old school type bodybuilder gym that's pretty sweet. It's it's sort of dingy, but you know, it's one of those things where you got a pre-core hack, you got a good leg press, I got a standing ham curl, all the essentials, you know. So that's, you know how it is. It's like, that's the most important stuff, is like, you're like, okay, does it have this piece? Does it have that piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can't use a hack squat in Newfoundland, apparently. But yeah, I'm all about the dingy gyms. That's, you know, we have a couple Good Lives out here, which is like a corporate Canada gym or whatever. They're okay, but there's a couple like old school hardcore gyms out here that I train mostly, but that's what I prefer, just like atmosphere wise and stuff like that.
Shut up and sit down.
There's a couple of cool ones.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's a couple of cool ones popping up around the area though. Like in Boston, actually, it was only like 2 minutes down the road from the Boston Pro, but Nate Tillo, he's with Jose Raymond.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen them. They have a podcast, but he opened a gym down there that's pretty badass. It's like private too, so
I heard about that.
It's like you just set it up, and there's not really any. There's only like 5 to 10 people in there at a time, so it's pretty sweet.
I was gonna ask, do you guys like to train like different body parts at different gyms, or do you like having one gym where you do everything at?
Well, like for me, like one of my old coaches opened up a gym recently here called Omega, and that he has like really good stuff for upper body, like a lot of plate loaded chest and back stuff. He's like one of the only gyms around here that has anything like that. So I train. It's funny though. So I train my upper body there. I haven't trained legs there until today. It was my first time training legs there because it's still new. It's only like a few months old, and he doesn't have like a leg press yet. But he has like he has like pretty much everything else. So we may do, but yeah. So up until this week, I was going to one of those Good Life gyms just to train legs because I have like a V squat, like hammer strength leg press, like, a bunch of hammer strength leg extension and hamstring curls. So that's what I would do. But yeah, that's pretty much it,
bro. Just do the vertical leg press in the Smith rack.
The Smith machine vertical. Yeah, just risk my life. Like 7 plates aside.
Yeah. Balancing on your heel.
Yeah, I hope I don't see it. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I have actually like 3 gym memberships. So I'm sure, I don't know, some people can probably relate if you have the access. I know it sounds like you don't have the access up there, but so I go from like, I have one definitely for legs, and then I have one definitely for like more upper body. And then one just like as like a fail safe. I don't know. So, but you definitely always have, if you have a few different gyms in your area, you always have like a leg day gym for sure, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It matters. Like obviously you can get away with a good upper body workout anywhere, but like leg day, you need your shit. Like, you know what I mean? You need the squat machine that feels good for you. You need the leg press that feels good for you. It's important.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right now I go between, there's a gym called Athletic Culture, which is cool. It's like all like black and green, and they've got like really, really good equipment. And then I go to Pure Fitness, obviously Pure Muscle and Fitness, but they're both like an hour drive in opposite directions. And the gyms that are close by, they're like, 15 or 20 minutes. They have like, 100-pound dumbbells. Like they're kind of missing most things. Like, I make the drive just because it's like, it's almost not worth going to a gym. It's like, what are you going to do? If you want to do like a good workout and you only have 100-pound dumbbells, you're kind of limited. And if I feel limited, especially on prep, in the off season, you could probably make it work just with barbells and dumbbells or whatever. But if you don't have like really good equipment to use for a prep, it just doesn't feel the same. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll just drive. It's only temporary anyway.
You gotta get the most out of your workouts right now, bro.
Yeah, but I'm different in the sense that if I could just be close to one gym, I just want to do everything at that one gym.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it's like that, then that's different. But I'm like saying, I guess it's different in the States. We're a little spoiled. So we usually have like, 5 or 6 gyms around us, no matter what area you're in. So it's one of those things we sort of have that, I guess, option. But I definitely get what you're saying. It's like, man, if I could pick one, obviously it'd be close to that one. I was actually going to ask you guys though, because now that you guys are both sort of settled in, it seems like, how come you guys haven't moved to like Toronto or closer to Dorian's gym? Because you guys are both like, seems like an hour away from the gyms and stuff.
Well, that was like my plan, like, because I visited there so many times. But it's not that I can't do it. Like, I have 2 big dogs, which doesn't make. And where that gym is in Burlington, like, that's like one of the nicest cities in Canada to live.
Like, expensive.
Like, dude, like, I'm not joking you. Like, house prices to where I live to there is like 4 times. You know,
I believe it.
Yeah, so like, it's something I could make happen right now, and that was my goal. But when I kind of, went through everything, and I kind of realized, I was like, man, I could do this, but I feel like it's going to stress me out financially, and I'm afraid that's going to affect my pro debut, right? So I'm just kind of like tuckered in now at home. I kind of want to, be in a less stressful environment as I can for my pro debut, just kind of see where I'm at, because like, I don't know, things could go really well for me at the Toronto Pro next year, and maybe I'll be in a way better financial situation to move. It'll make more sense, and it'll just be better timing. So that's still my goal. Like, I want to be up there with those guys at Pure. I mean, like, they're all my friends. And, that's the best place to be for me. But for me, it's just like a timing thing. So it's something I definitely want to do. I'm just kind of working towards it still,
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me, honestly. Like, I lived about 40 minutes from Pure, and then even that area was really expensive. Pretty much all around Toronto was very, very expensive. And where Pure is, Burlington is like Mo said, it's like almost the most expensive place in the GTA. It's a beautiful place to live, but I mean, just even renting is like a mortgage, and trying to buy a place there is just not realistic right now. So I'm actually going to move to the States for a little while and do my preps there and that kind of stuff, just because it's a little bit cheaper to live. And then just kind of similar to Mo, it's like the end goal is to buy a place in Burlington or somewhere in the area.
Yeah. Where are you gonna prep or stay in the States at?
I'm gonna go down to MI40, so like Tampa area.
Oh, dope, nice.
Yeah,
that's sick.
So
yeah, I mean, it's still, cost of living down there is not bad at all. So it's probably like nothing compared to you guys.
I was really surprised.
I get like a long-term rental or something.
I'm actually taking over a lease from somebody else.
Oh,
so I've got like a 6-month lease.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's cool. And it's very reasonable, man. I was very surprised, especially when I was there last year. I was like, wow, like, food is cheap, and like, gas was cheaper, and like, it's different for sure. But just, I don't know, for some reason, like, Ontario is getting really expensive.
It's crazy there, man.
Yeah. But what can you do? If you want to, live near the best gym or one of the best gyms in the world, it's like, you're going to pay the price. So that's just one of the goals, and just focusing on like the process of getting there. Right.
Yeah, I definitely get like where you guys are coming from, because like we live in New Hampshire, so it's like bordering Massachusetts. So like Boston, because my girlfriend, that's why we live where we live, because she's going to school in Boston, and like the apartments there, like $3,000 to $4,000 a month for 1 bedroom.
Oh, that's insane,
it's ridiculous. Dude. Yeah, so we live in like New Hampshire because it's much cheaper. So she makes the commute, but it's like worth it, right? So like you guys are saying, you sort of weigh out the options. It's like, even though we could probably afford it, it's like, there's no point in like breaking your fucking back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I can't justify it.
Yeah. And grass always seems greener on the other side, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it does, like, it's obviously very appealing, but it's like, once you get up there and settle away, it's like, is it really worth it if you're like, just living paycheck to paycheck? And we all know, like, that's not the ideal situation when you're a bodybuilder. Like, our expenses are fucking insane, right? So, but yeah, exactly. Just something. But like, I'm glad, because I had a few conversations about that with people, and and that's just what reinforced like what I was sort of thinking, was just like, at least for my first couple pro shows, just kind of be in my environment where I know I have like the support of my parents. Like, it's very chill here. Like, all those things, right? Instead of like having to worry about all these other outside distractions of just like keeping my normal life together while I try to bodybuild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But one of these days, I know Robin really wants to move up there. He misses me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I definitely want to go out into the fucking, the boonies out east.
Yeah, like I would say come visit here, but I'm just like, well, actually don't. Like, you probably don't enjoy it. Like, you're just coming here to like train at a shittier gym than you have, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I did hear you on a podcast. Isn't that where Frank McGrath's from too?
Frank, yeah, man. He was like my idol growing up because of that.
Yeah.
That's when like animal
That's pretty
paddling
badass.
was cool. Yeah. And like, that's when I was coming up. And then I like Frank before I actually found out he was from Newfoundland. Cause I'm from St. John's, which is like the biggest city. But like, where Frank is from, it's like maybe 75 people live in that town.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. Like the fact
That's funny.
Like Frank McGrath truly is an icon because where he came from to like, where he went, and what he did is actually extraordinary. Like, so, and he's such a cool dude too. Like anytime I'm in Burlington, like he's up there after Muscle and Fitness, and he's such a good dude, man. So, but yeah, we're the only 2 pros ever from Newfoundland.
Yeah, that's funny.
So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Probably never again either. No.
Listen,
never know, eh?
The way it's looking, No, there's a couple of young kids here that I'm coaching that are definitely that love it. Like they have to have the passion and they have some good genetics. So it's something that's growing here. But it's just like, I mean, Canada is behind the States in bodybuilding, but like Newfoundland is behind Canada. Yeah. That's kind of the way.
Yeah.
Who's the young kids? Give them a little shout out there.
So Ryan Shea, so he's an assistant coach at my coaching company as well. But he's up and coming, classic physique competitor. Guy's got great genetics. Good looking guy. He's like 6'4". So he's got a promising future as well. And there's more than these 2, but these are the 2 guys I'm working with the longest. Jared Burry is another guy. He just graduated university with like a degree in nutrition. Like he's just all about the lifestyle. He's like me, tall guy, but he's going to be a super heavyweight bodybuilder for sure. We're going to put slabs of meat on this guy and it's going well. So, and Jared, they're actually both competing at the end of this year. So should be good. Nice. Keep a lookout for him. Yeah.
You got any clients coming up competing pretty soon, Nate, or anything like that?
I mean, I'm still sort of fresh in the coaching game, so I don't really have anyone like crazy. I did have a kid just won. It's pretty big in the States. It's called the Pittsburgh. So that's where they have the pro show. Yeah. He won the amateur portion, the overall in bodybuilding. So that was pretty dope.
That's awesome.
So just a couple random overalls here and there, but nothing crazy yet,
That's a question I actually wanted to ask you. I was like, what do you do for work? I wasn't sure if you were just coaching or training people or.
Walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above.
Yeah, so actually it's a pretty cool story. So I do coach full time now. Luckily, things sort of took off after the nationals and the pro debut. It definitely skyrocketed my coaching, so that was cool. But before that, actually, so for all my bodybuilding career, I worked as a general manager in restaurants. So that sucked. That was a very high, stressful, on your feet a lot, 60, 70-hour weeks on salary when you're not really, what I mean? It's just one of those things that just sort of sucked. And actually, it's a funny story. And I was like 7 weeks out from nationals and I actually got fired. So it was for like nothing either. It was like just because I wasn't meeting the sales quota from the previous years and their food cost projections and all that kind of stuff. So it was sort of like corporate BS, but whatever. It's funny because now I look back on it and it was like the best thing that happened to me because like, I took that chance to do the coaching full time. At that time, I only had like 15 people. But like I made the push and, I made through it and I'm much happier and in a much better place because of it, Yeah,
it's funny what you can do when you don't have a plan B.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything happened to me, man. I was a personal trainer at the corporate gym here. I did that for like 7 years because it was like the only thing fitness related I could do here. And I was like, had a few online clients like here and there, like probably the same as you, maybe had 12 or 15. And I got fired from my personal training job. And that was in 2020. And I was like, well, the only thing I can do now is to start an online coaching business, because I wasn't going to try to get into a job that wasn't bodybuilding conducive. And just did it, like went crazy with marketing myself on social media, like trying to put out as much knowledge as I could, like, and then my business, like, grew to what it is today, which is, it's doing really good now. So, but yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, very, very similar thing, man. It's like, once you have all your eggs in one basket, like you just got to give her, right?
Well, I think that's another reason why.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just for like sales and not so like usually most restaurants that what they do is they do like a report, so whatever your previous year's sales were, they want you to beat that and sort of keep increasing, and they give you a budget for food costs and labor and all that kind of stuff. And so pretty much on their end, they were just saying I wasn't meeting what they wanted, so they just let me go. I mean, so it was a good thing in the end, though.
I got fired because I was online coaching people.
Oh, really? They found out? Yeah.
They kept warning me about it, but it's like I had people doing competition preps and stuff, and that's what I wanted to do. So I just tried to keep it on the down low, and they were just like, this is not on the down low. Like, you got to go. I was like, all right, whatever.
It's okay. I got fired from Good Life too. I got fired from GNC as well.
Everyone that works at Good Life gets fired from there. That's how you like leave Good Life.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Man. They just get sick of your shit.
Well, I think another reason too is actually now that you were asking earlier, like, oh, like, do you feel any different now that you're a pro? Well, it helps that this coincided, with turning pro, because now I sort of feel like a pro bodybuilder because I'm not like going to work every day.
Oh, dude, great, right? Great. Love it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Eat my meals on time every day. Like being your own boss is the best. Like, it's stressful because like owning a business, like legitimate business, there's a lot that comes with that you don't have to worry about when you're just an employee of the business. You know what I mean? But it's totally worth it. Like, I wouldn't trade what I do for anything. I mean, that's why I take it so seriously.
Yeah, I agree. It's more rewarding for sure, man. Like, like when you're working at like Good Life, you're working for other people. It's like you fucking bust your ass, and it's like always like, well, you got to do better, and you're like, okay, but you're only getting paid like fucking half of what you're worth. So at least when you own your shit, you can really decide what your value is.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that makes it much more rewarding, even though, like you said, there's of course challenges for sure, but yeah, like
plus the thing too is like, as a personal trainer, it's like you said, it's almost like disrespectful, because I don't know about you guys, but in the States, it's like, I want to say like 60% or like 65%, 35%. Like, so the 35% is like what you're making as a personal trainer, you know what I mean? Of the cost. So like they're making like 65, 70% off of you. It's like, what the fuck, so it's hard to like keep going.
Yeah. You can't even like have a really great living off of it unless like you're pulling 40, 60 hour weeks, and doing that as a personal trainer is just like torture. Like, you just can't, you can't give your all to people that way anyway. So.
And that's what they want, right? Like, it's like, if you're not getting that 40 to 60 hours, they're like harping on you, like, where's your 40 hours? You're like, dude,
Oh yeah, exactly.
and you know what I found too is like when you're in a situation like that, it actually makes you start not wanting to train. You don't want to be in the gym anymore. You're just like, I'm fucking sick of this place. So I'm grateful to, like, I'm sure you guys are, to be in the situation where it's like you can just enjoy your training, enjoy your lifestyle, and like you can make it exactly how you want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. But it was earned, right?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people want to be online coaches. Like, you see that all the time, man. It's friggin' insane, right? But, I mean, luckily people are pretty good at weeding out like the real ones, like, from people who want to do it because it seems cool or whatever. But like, we earned this position. It's 10 years of training and eating perfectly and doing what we did on stage, and, helping people for free along the way too, probably. Like, it's all those things that build you into someone who can coach people, because you need to have gone through things to coach people. Like, I hate seeing guys that did one show, got fourth place, and next thing they're coaching people. But you don't even know what it takes. Like, how are you supposed to coach anyone to do anything? Like,
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, is like, people ask me that, oh, how do I make money with this? I'm like, you haven't competed yet. And like, just kind of, you got to stick with what you're doing now for as long as you can. Like, if you're working a 9 to 5, like, you just have to work that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, like, it's almost like you have to inspire people, like, in a way. Like, people need to be inspired by you to look to you for coaching and to like, mentor them with what they're doing. So like, if you haven't done anything inspirational and you haven't overcame anything like yourself, then it's probably going to be tough for you. Like, you're going to have to try to.
I'm sure it's the same thing for you guys when you pick out a coach. Why do you pick them out? Because you like respect them and you see like, oh, this guy's like it's like, picking like an elder. You know what I mean? It's like, he's came before me, he's done that.
Yeah, no, exactly, totally. You got to be someone that you trust, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
and that was the thing too. I was just going to touch on is, I didn't start coaching until I did, I think, like 15, 16 shows. I was runner up at pro qualifier like 3 or 4 times. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of, like you said, I mean, it's even worse when that's your old client coaching people after they've done the one show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know that they don't know shit. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, but then I was just saying the people who are signed up with them are dumb too. So
Yeah.
it's also on them. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Well, I mean, and like everybody, I think, picks a coach that they believe is kind of on the level that they are, like a little bit higher, but like you're not going to see a guy who's a regional level like trying to, you know, work with like Henny Rambod. You know, it's just they know it's not going to happen. So I think they pick someone who's kind of going to give them what they want, not necessarily what they need. You know, so if they're trying to work with like, you know, you, Nate, or if they're trying to work with you, Mo, it's like it's almost like they don't want to do everything that you expect them to do. So they're going to pick someone just a little bit lower in experience and stuff. Because I'm sure you guys are like me. You have a really, really high expectation for your clients, and not everybody can handle that. So they're like, oh, that's a little bit too much for me. Like, I'm going to go find someone else. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right.
Yeah. They just want to find someone like less intimidating, probably more so than anything.
Yeah. But I was going to ask you, Nate, because you work with Andrew Barry for your whole career. Are you planning on just working with him like basically forever?
Yeah, I think so. I think we just, like I said, I feel like we have something that works. And I'm not the type of guy that thinks there's like some magic, you know, potion that another coach has, or, you know, like, oh, if I go to George Farah, like he just got Blessing a win, so maybe he'll make me look like Blessing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just thought I'm actually a little disappointed. I just saw Justin left AJ and went to George, but anyways,
that's what made me kind of bring it up. Yeah,
I knew he left. I knew he left AJ. I didn't know he went to George.
Yeah, I'm just like, bro, really? And Max Charles did too. Went to George. It's like, just because a guy walks in, he cleans him up from his old coach, and now these guys are like bamboozled by it, right? Like, oh, maybe that'll be me. It's like, bro, like.
No, man.
And these are guys ahead of us. Like, I don't know. It's just sort of like, sometimes you're just like, really?
Yeah. It's like that. Is that actually how your mind works? Like, it's kind of like, it's sort of surprising, right? That like some guys are at the level.
Yeah.
That's kind of the decisions they make, like based off something that's like, we know it's not the case. Right.
Yeah.
Well, rarely does the coach make the athlete, you know? So
right.
They might be able to, you know, maybe in like Blessing and George's case, just because I watched them have a conversation about this. It was almost like George was just the right guy to kind of help him with his mindset at the time. Just like they just had a good connection, you know, and sometimes that's all you need, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Blessing obviously believed in what George was saying and did it and executed it accordingly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're with a coach and you're second guessing everything, even if you're still doing it but second guessing them, like maybe you're not going to get the desired result, right?
Yeah, and I've been there a number of times, you know, and it's not really a great feeling, and you kind of know, like, okay, I'm not going to be with this guy long term because we don't really agree on most things, and there's nothing wrong with that, because they might be a great coach. It's just you don't agree with what they're giving you, right? Yeah. Yeah,
you definitely got to find someone that, I mean, you know, you have a good connection with. Like, I think that's why I wouldn't leave Andrew, because I feel like we have a good connection, like how we are just like as guys, you know what I mean? Like we can shoot the shit, like we have similar beliefs, like similar mindset, etc. Like, so I think that is also a good thing, you know. I think you know, having a connection, like let's say Blessing, you know, has a really good connection with George, and it's like he trusts in him, and everything is, you know, they become, you know, tighter in a relationship. I think that's definitely beneficial, especially as pros, because, you know, at this level we already sort of know what to do. We know what to like, you know what I mean? If someone tells us what to do, we follow the plan. It's like, okay, this is nothing new to us. Right. But there's a mindset, right, and a relationship with the coach that I think is can be important, because especially the better you get, the more you question things, or the more you think you know things. I think a lot of these guys, you know what I mean? So you have to have a coach where you're like, okay, like I'm going to follow everything to a T because I believe and I trust in him. Like, I don't think you can have a coach where you're like questioning, you know, like, oh, do I know more than this guy, or maybe I should try this, or
that's a big one. Yeah, that's a big one for sure. Yeah.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
I think I know everything.
And just knowing that your coach truly has the best intentions and they actually care about you, like that's everything, right? Like, right. Because then I mean, that's a big one for me, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the last thing you want to be is in prep at 4 weeks out thinking, oh man, is this guy going to have me ready in time? Or, you know what I mean? Or you're like going back and forth, like questioning.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like sometimes like you just need to have a conversation with your coach. You know what I mean? Like maybe you just need some reassurance, something like that. But like when you need that and your coach just like is giving you like short answers, you know what I mean? Right. And then maybe you're questioning something already, that will make you question it further. And then you're just stressed. And like, that's just, you're going down a rabbit hole then, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So Nate, you said you just started coaching recently. Do you have somewhere where people can kind of like find out, or is it just mostly on like Instagram? Do you have a website or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I'm just doing everything by Instagram right now, so that might change in the future. But yeah, just right now Instagram. It's just at Nate Spear. So
Cool.
Sweet, man.
So I was gonna say let's just wrap it up here because I'm sure we all got to eat. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show, Nate. Listen, man, if you come to Toronto, come to Pure, we all got to go down there and get a workout in together. Maybe do some filming for YouTube, and definitely get you back on the show because I really enjoyed this conversation, man. It was cool.
Yeah,
for sure. Thanks for having me on, guys. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Okay, have a good night.
See you guys
later.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Canadian Beef Podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel and check us out on Spotify. You can use our code on helixonline.com. The code is BEEF20. That's BEEF20 at checkout. You're going to save yourself 20% off. And you're going to help our podcast grow. Thank you so much, guys. See you in the next episode.